Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6, count it, 6 of the Overly Sarcastic podcast. And today we're talking about Socrates again. Yes, but we're going to be talking about the time he got totally murdered. Also known as the Trial of Socrates, otherwise known as the Defense of Socrates, otherwise known as the Apologia of Socrates, written by Plato. It's a little bit confusing. So the thing with Socrates is that he didn't write anything at all. I mean, even the entire Republic is written by Plato, but it's from the point of Socrates for, reasons of Plato wanted to write through his master Socrates. And originally, all of the Socratic dialogues were copies of not copies, but kind of stylistic rememberings of conversations that Socrates would have had. But later, as time went on, Plato started using Socrates more as his own mouthpiece for certain ideas, which is what you get in the Republic. But in the Apologia, you get probably a pretty accurate attempt to recreate what the trial of Socrates would have been like. Now, Plato wasn't the only person to have written Socratic dialogues. There was another guy, Xenophon, who did Socratic dialogues a little bit after him, after Aristotle, but they're a different style and they're not as important, so we're going to be sticking with what Plato has. So before Plato, there was one person to write about Socrates, and that's Aristophanes, the Greek comedian, comedic playwright, not like a stand-up comedian. I don't think they had those in ancient Greece, but the scholarship's still out on that. So, The Clouds by Aristophanes is Aristophanes' play about the sophists and the sophistic movement, and specifically Socrates, and it paints him as a kind of bumbling, pontificating idiot up in an inflatable blimp talking about the sky, and there are all sorts of horribly disgusting butt jokes of various varieties. But the point is that Aristophanes really had it out for Socrates, and the thing is that when you're a very famous, influential comic playwright, people watch your plays, and the ideas that you have in your plays get kind of ingrained into the common thinking of the populace. So a lot of people would not have liked Socrates for multiple reasons, as we will get into in this little discussion here. So some background on Socrates, the man himself. He was born in 469 and died in 399. He was the son of a stonemason in a lower middle class family, and he served as a hoplite in the mid-40s and shared a tent with none other than Alcibiades. That must have been fun. I'll let you fill in the blanks there for yourself, but I will move along to his teachings. So his teachings were mostly along the lines of moral philosophy, as opposed to some of the metaphysical philosophy of what is the world that you kind of get with Descartes and people like that. But his idea of philosophy was how you should live. What's right, what's justice, what's piety, what makes you a good father, a good citizen, a good husband, a good wife, a good son, a good person. What does it mean to be good was Socrates' big thing. And he talked about knowledge with a lot of the people that he interacted with, so he didn't necessarily have a job per se, but he would go out, around to Athens and just talk to people about stuff and ask them what they knew, what they did, what they thought, how they acted. And he was sort of known for going around and beating down everyone's idea of, what they are and what truth is, until everyone thought, well, I don't know anything anymore. This understandably did not lead to him having the best reputation among his fellow Athenians, but he had his own little crusade of trying to educate people through this means of questioning and instilling doubt and making people possibly reconsider their entire lives, which would have sucked for them, but for Socrates, it's all in a day's work. So the thing is that he had this very specific kind of moral philosophy, which is all about being good, but Aristophanes compared him and basically threw him in line with some of the other sophists at the time, who were entirely focused on teaching people how to argue their way out of debts, mostly, and how to be bad people, and they took money to teach these things. Socrates didn't take any money from anybody, which is an important distinction. So we have a semi-pissed off populace and people who want to do stuff about it, and eventually in 399 we get a trial. 5 years after the Peloponnesian War, people say, hey Socrates, we don't really like you that much. And they have a couple charges against him. The first old charge, so to speak, is basically the kind of lingering interpretation of Socrates and his action based on his portrayal in The Clouds by Aristophanes. And for many reasons, it's an inaccurate portrayal, but what can you do when it comes to public opinion? Once they think that, the populace will keep thinking what they're thinking. And these sort of actual things that he was being tried for, the new charges, is that he corrupts the youth, doesn't believe in the city's gods, and worse, invents his own gods. So with this setup in mind, let us begin the Apologia of Socrates by Plato. So really quickly, an apology really in English, is not an apology where he says, I'm sorry. It's when he defends himself. An apologia is a defense. So if you call someone an apologist for something. So like an apologist for America is what Obama's been called a lot. It doesn't mean he is literally going out and apologizing, saying America is bad, we're sorry. Being an American apologist, for instance, is someone who will defend what America does and explain it and try to rationalize why it's actually a good thing. So the Apologia of Socrates is his defense, not Socrates saying he's sorry. So with that, let us jump in and go through Socrates' arguments in his trial and his defense. So Socrates started the trial by trying to describe what it is that he really did. So he said, I have a friend who went to the oracle at Pythia, his name is Charaphon, I'm not entirely sure, and asked, what's the deal with this Socrates guy, my buddy? Is he smart, is he not? I don't know. And the oracle said there is no man wiser than Socrates. And Socrates said, well, I will believe the word of the gods, so I'm going to take my word for being pretty smart. The thing is, I don't really think that I'm smart, because what I know is that I know nothing, and that's the only thing that puts me above any of you. So when I go around and talk to people, I'm the one who's trying to figure out what people actually know, and it turns out everyone I talk to, writers, artists, politicians, farmers, soldiers, whoever, they know nothing, but they don't know they know nothing. I know that I know nothing, so that's what puts me at a leg up. And this is actually quite accurate given most of Socrates' dialogues in that at the beginning of the Republic, he does not give his own definition of justice. He just refutes everyone else's and comes to a conclusion of there being a lack of knowledge on the subject before actually going and coming up with his own answer. So for the most part, Socratic dialogues involve Socrates breaking down knowledge and saying, hey, you're dumb. People don't like that. So he said, I went to politicians, they didn't know anything, they couldn't answer even the most simple questions, and they got mad at me for even asking. He goes to artists and poets, they didn't know anything, nor could they explain their own poems and why they made sense or why they worked. And he said the thing with them is they get inspiration, not wisdom, so they don't know anything. Finally, he went to craftsmen and said that, they know how to make things, but beyond that, they can't tell you about the things they make. They can't really give you anything else. So basically, he's, explained everyone I've talked to doesn't know anything. I'm only different because I know that I don't know. So he has a defense that he goes through, and I'll try to get through it, point by point here. He says, first off, let's start with the old charges and the presupposed, preconceived notions that you guys have about me and how I'm a corrupter and an evil person. Thank you, Aristophanes, you dick. That's subtext. But he says, am I really the only corrupter? Is it possible that I can be the only person out of an entire city that makes you guys worse off? Really? You really think that? That is suspiciously unlucky of me if that's really the case. I think you guys just don't like me. That's all. I'm the most vocal, which is why you pick on me instead of someone else who might be doing the same thing. So he compares corruption to horse training and says that only someone trained can improve a horse. So he compares corruption in a city to horse training and says that only one person, the trainer, is really qualified to improve the horse, but if you throw 50 random people in a barn, they can't make a horse any better of a horse. And Socrates says, I'm the horse trainer, I'm the one who knows what I'm doing, you guys don't. So, you might not like me, but I am doing something good. And then he says, okay, so let's say I am a corrupter. Am I doing it willingly, though? No, because why on earth would I willingly corrupt people who would then turn around and harm me? So if I am doing it, I'm doing it unwillingly, and then it's not my fault, and I should be educated on how to be a better person, not punished for it, you see? So then he says, okay, you guys don't like me, fine, whatever. The first real charge here is atheism. You guys are saying I'm an atheist. Now, Socrates could have taken a very easy solution and said, no, I'm not an atheist, I believe in the gods, but he goes on some weird tangent instead and says, I believe in these little things called daimonia, which are small little gods that whisper in your ear, and they tell me things, and I think that since there are these small gods, there must be big gods too, so I do believe in the gods. Now, I could have been straight up and just said, I do believe in the gods, that's a completely false charge, but he had to make a weird point out of it, so that's kind of foreshadowing to Socrates making a point out of something later on, but moving on, we have the next charge, which is basically envy and slander, and he says, the real reason I'm out here is because all the politicians are pissed off because I made them look stupid. It's because they are stupid. They get annoyed just because I ask questions and reveal how little they know. I'm okay with not knowing anything. They throw a fit about it, so that's their problem, not mine. The people who follow me around actually learn things because they pay attention to the conversations and get something out of it, rather than just trying to defend their own point of view annoyingly. So the people who follow me are in search of wisdom, and I'm also in search of wisdom, and the politicians simply aren't. So next, he says, I'm kind of like Achilles, because I'm not willing to endure shame or injustice, just like he was. He'd rather die than be dishonored. So if it means exile, fine, I'll be exiled. Death, okay, that works too. The thing is, I'm going to do what I think is right, no matter what the consequences are. Next, he says he will obey the good, or the god, depending on how you want to read it. He says, the gods told me what I'm supposed to do, and I will obey them over you because I know I'm right, and I know that the law of man is above what you guys may say the law is, because you're just being driven by petty, annoyances and the fact that I make you look dumb, instead of the actual law, which I haven't clearly broken. So you guys may think I'm bad, but I know I'm good because I know what justice is, and my life is a benefit to Athens. Athens is like a sluggish horse, which needs a little bit of spurring. I'm like a gadfly that bites it on the ass and moves it to action. You don't like it when a gadfly bites you on the ass, but otherwise you'd fall asleep and be dumb, and even though I make people look stupid and reveal what people actually know and don't know, I'm a benefit because it means other people will get educated because of it. So, say all you want, but I am a benefit to the city. I'm the gadfly that you guys need. He's like sort of a pre-Batman Batman, but like with smarts instead of punching people, and he's not wearing hockey pads. So next is, I have avoided public life and injustices. People ask me, Socrates, why haven't you been a politician before? He says, no just men can survive a public life. I mean, look at you idiots. Seriously. He insults the jurors and politicians there, and it's actually really funny because he says, clearly, you guys have been ruined by this. There's no way I would willingly put myself through that because it's terrible. I see what it does to you. You would have just totally executed me if you didn't have to go through the formality of putting me through this trial. And Socrates kind of knows that he's going to die the whole way through. He's making arguments that normally he wouldn't be making if he was actually trying to save his skin, but he's really trying to prove a point here and deliver a giant middle finger as he, tiptoes into the abyss of death. But while he's here, he's going to have fun and basically insult the people who are going to put him to death because he can, because that's what Socrates does, that's how he rolls. So, to the argument of why didn't you become a politician if you're such a good guy, he said, well, you either die here or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Wow, I'm all with the Batman references today. But you guys clearly became villains because politics ruined you. I don't want to be ruined by politics, and I'll do my good by, educating people in the city and not through writing policy because I know that's where I'm most useful. And if we follow along with Plato and the Republic, we get the whole one man, one job thing, and that's his description of justice. So it kind of fits that Socrates would be like, I'm going to do my one thing well, no matter what you guys think is best for me, because I know what's best because I'm smarter than you. He says, look at all the people out here. Look at all the families and friends that I've supposedly corrupted that are here to support me, not attack me. If I've really been that bad of a person, wouldn't they be here saying, yeah, go, kill him, screw that guy, Socrates, meh, meh, meh. But no, they're here to support me. So take that as a clue. And I won't beg. Now, side note into Athenian court systems here. Usually, if it's the case that someone's probably going to die, they'd usually bring out their, spouse and family to say, look, I have a family, please don't kill me, in the hopes that it'll, emotionally sway the jury. But Socrates says, no, I'm not going to do that because I want to die on my merits and not get a pardon because of an emotional plea. Because if I'm going to be right, I want to be properly right and have made the better argument and won that way, not through a cheap trick. I'm not going to stoop to your guys' level and play on emotions. Mic drop. So we get to the vote. Now there are 500 Athenians who vote in this case, and the vote was 280 to 220 guilty, so it is a really thin margin, 30 people. One way or another. And the way the punishment works is that the defense and the prosecution will both submit punishments. The prosecution goes first and the defense replies. And then afterwards, the jury will decide on which punishment is better suited if they did vote guilty. In this case, they did. So the prosecution proposes death, which they're kind of going for all along, and Socrates proposes a penalty that he thinks he deserves. He says, if you want to know what I think I deserve, then I'll tell you what I deserve. Free meals for life, because that is what I've done for the city, and that is what I think a just recompense for my actions would be. I want to get paid for meals for life in the Prytaneum, which was a sort of fancy central community palace thing to hang out and eat food. And he says, that is what I think I have earned myself for my work in this city. And he's making this whole thing, and he says, okay, fine, you guys want to do that. I've got 23 cents and 2 pieces of lint in my pocket. If you'll take that, we'll call it even. Good deal, walk away. Cool. And his friends say, dude, what are you doing? That's so stupid. So they say, here's 30 minae. We'll offer 30 minae in exchange, just payment instead of the 23 cents and 2 pieces of lint. And his friends are the ones who actually offer a legitimate penalty instead of Socrates in the hopes that, he won't piss off the jury into killing him. But it's too late. So the second vote on which punishment they go with is 470 to 30 in favor of death, according to Plato. So Socrates managed to piss off 190 people who voted for him to not get punished, and then voted for him to die because he annoyed them so much. That is the kind of guy Socrates is. He will do anything to make a point at your expense. Or in this case, his expense, but really your expense. Because in this case, the juries are the ones who really look bad in this, not Socrates. He's going out on top. So Socrates says, people will say that Athens killed Socrates, a good and wise man, or a good and just man according to some translations. But Socrates says, you guys done messed up and you will regret this. And then he says, the thing is, I'm gonna die. Okay. Who knows what death is? Either it's like sleep. I mean, I'm really tired, so great, and I'm gonna die soon anyway, so, you didn't really get me that badly, guys. Or if it's not like death, I get to chill with all those cool Greek heroes who actually know what justice is, and I can talk to them since they know so much more about justice, honor, and goodness than any of you ever will. So he's just dropping mics left and right. And he says, after that, he says, I have 2 teenage boys, and I won't be around to raise them, thanks. But if you see my boys acting like they know what justice, piety, or excellence is, correct them, because that's what they deserve, and that's what you as a city deserve to be educating the children properly. You now have the role of parent, Athens. You brought this on yourself. So we go away. You to your homes, me to die. Only the gods know which is better. And then he gets sentenced to death, spoiler alert. And then later on, when he's in a prison, Socrates' friend Crito comes and says, hey buddy, we've rigged the whole thing, we're gonna get you out here. We have an escape thing, we're gonna dig a tunnel under, just like El Chapo, it's gonna be so easy. And Socrates says, no, I've always lived in Athens, obeying her laws. The laws are important to me, so I will obey them. And I don't want to taint my good reputation now, I've been just all my life. If I throw it away just to live a little bit longer, what does that say about me? What kind of person does that make me? It makes me a coward, A, but it also makes me unjust, and that's, one of the worst things you could be. I never committed injustice under any government, and also, besides, I have the whole punch card thing, so if I go 2 more days without committing an injustice, I get a free lunch. So that's nice. Socrates was definitely an equal opportunity annoyer. No matter who you were, powerful, poor, supposedly smart, supposedly dumb, he would do the same thing to everybody. Socrates was the great equalizer in how much you might hate him after talking to him. But, Socrates died as he lived, being quite cheeky, rather annoying, and supremely enlightened. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you all next time on the Overly Sarcastic Podcast.